pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good afternoon and welcome to the Minnehaha City of Sioux Falls joint meeting on August 25th, 2015. I remind you to silence your cell phones if you already have not done that. Recognizing that Minnehaha has a quorum here with Commissioner Barth, Commissioner Kelly, and myself. City of Sioux Falls will take roll call.
Council members Anderson. Here. Erickson. Here. Erpenbach.
Here.
Jamison.
Here.
Karski.
Here.
Kiley.
Here.
Rolfing.
Here.
Staggers.
Okay. I'd look for a motion on the county side to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Now on the city side.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second, Rolfing.
We have a motion and a second on the city side. All those in favor say aye.
No.
Roll call.
Voicemail, excuse me. Or voicemail. There we go.
Council members Anderson.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Jamison.
Yes.
Karski.
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
We have a unanimous decision. Or they're all here. Excuse me. It's going to take me a minute again. Okay. On with the agenda.
Item 1 is a special one-day malt beverage license for Nas Therese MB Haskett to be operated at 8th and Railroad Center parking lot 401 East 8th Street for an OTA 15 event on August 28, 2015, and to authorize publication of the notice on August 14th, 15th to set the hearing date.
Is there a motion from the city side?
Jamie will speak to it.
Excuse me.
Jamie Palmer with licensing. This item is a special one day that was received past the time that would allow us to do it in the regular manner that we do. So I had to request permission to publish it first in order to meet the state law requirements. And the applicant is here if you have any questions for them.
City Council, do you have any questions?
Move to approve, Erickson. Second, Erpenbach.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Roll call, please.
Council members Anderson.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Jamison.
Yes.
Karski.
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Okay. Item number 2.
Item number 2 is a special one-day malt beverage license for Sioux Falls YMCA to be operated at Leif Erickson Day Camp, 2301 East 26th Street, for the Muddy Bike 5K run on August 29, 2015, and to authorize publication of the notice on August 14th, 15th to set the hearing date.
And again, same on this one. The request was received late, and this was a way for us to accommodate it. And thanks to Lori Hugstead, the clerk, she was able to come up with a plan to be able to accommodate this request.
Move to approve, Erickson.
Motion and a second on the motion and a second on the city side. Roll call vote, please.
Council members Anderson.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach.
Yes.
Jamison.
Yes.
Karski.
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. On to new business, which is item number 3.
Item 3 is a joint budget hearing for Siouxland libraries.
Good afternoon. I am Jody Fick, the Assistant Director for Siouxland Libraries. Siouxland Libraries was formed in 1995 with the merger of the Minnehaha County Rural Public Library and Sioux Falls Public Library, and receives funding from both the city and the county for its operations. In the 2016 budget, our plan is to continue to deliver current and relevant materials to our customers, provide fast and efficient service, promote reading, learning, and discovery, and to expand access to library services. The picture that you're seeing is our bookmobile when it was at the downtown book walk where all the children came and read a book as they walked along the falls. The budget for this next year will allow us to continue purchasing materials. In 2014, we averaged 9.6 items checked out per citizen. The national average for checkouts is at the 8 per item. So our citizens are using our libraries in great numbers. The 2014 budget allowed us to spend $3.58 per citizen on materials. The goal with budgeted to spend a similar amount. In the library budget, we have made a significant focus on improving and promoting reading, learning, and discovery. We have held 440 adult programs for 2,446 people in 2014. This is more than double the number of programs that we did in 13, and we continue to increase those numbers. Last year, we did a promotion called Geek the Library, where we polled our customers and found out what types of programs they would like to see. And we have expanded what we're doing beyond just the computer access, the book talks, the author talks, to where we now have more film series, books on programs on gardening, even how to use fire extinguishers. Our programming for teens has expanded dramatically. Attendance at our programs increased 234% in 14 compared with 13, and 15 is continuing to show a dramatic rise up. The library is doing that with increased partnerships with our schools, and we have also formed teen advisory boards at most of our branches where the teens are in and giving us input, and they are actually now starting to do some of the programming with the younger children. Children's programs continue to be our strengths. When you think of the library, you often think of the preschool story time. We have a significant focus on early literacy skills and learning, and we've expanded past those preschool story times to toddler times and lap sits, where parents learn to read to children at those very, very early pre-learning times. Studies have shown that children, before they enter kindergarten, need to be exposed to at least 1,000 books to be successful. So this year, we have started the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program, where you can sign up and log those books with your children with the goal of reaching 1,000 before kindergarten. And then throughout every 100 books, you come to the library, and we give you an incentive to continue on. This program has been just embraced by families. Now the budget. The 2016 budget has an operating budget of $8.3 million and a capital budget of $0.9 million for a total investment of $9.2 million in library services. The operating portion of the budget is $8.3 million. The majority of this budget is personnel. Our budget for 16 is a very flat budget for personnel compared with 15. Part of this is due to that we moved one of our positions from the library over to finance. With the change with the Munis system, we had different needs for how we handle our monies. On the operating side of it, we do have a significant increase. In 2015, we were at $1.7 million, and in 2016, we're requesting $2.8 million. All of that increase is due to the Cayley Branch remodel project, which I'll talk about in more detail. Major budget changes. In 2015, we requested $7.1 million for the operating budget. $67,000 will be for wages and benefits. An additional $43,000 will be for some of our professional services, specifically for the Reading Bridge program. Reading Bridge is a program that operates every July and has expanded from serving fewer than 100 children to over 700 children, where they get one-on-one tutoring with teachers, and the teachers get a small payment. The other thing that we're starting is the Family Place Library, where we are going to actually be connecting our young families with different services throughout the community. So we become the place for families to come to actually get connected with other services. That will be starting later this year. The other professional services are our online resources. Those are the databases and the downloadables, the things that our customers are able to use regardless of if a library is physically open or not. In technology, we are seeing an increase of $12,000. That's for some of our computer replacements and also some of our software. In repair and maintenance, again, this is where the majority of our budget increase is requested. $1,159,000 additional dollars. Most of that is for the Cayley branch remodel and repairs, and there are also some significant repairs to be done at the Oakview branch on their roof and in their parking lot. Supplies and materials budget is decreasing $143,000. If you recall, last year we did a replacement of our library automation system, the ILS software, and so the cost to purchase that is being taken out of the budget. Utilities will be up at about $28,000, mostly in electricity and natural gas costs to operate our buildings. And then the other expenses of $9,000 are for things like janitorial supplies, some training, snow removal, and advertising. So our full operating request for next year is $8.3 million. Now the Cayley Branch Library. Last year's budget included some money for us to have some consultants come in and look at that space. The Cayley branch was built in 1988 and it expanded in 2002. The branch now is a size of 12,500. Other than the expansion, no major repairs have been done to that. The time that the branch opened, we actually had no computers for the public. We now have 22 computers in that building that the public are using. Yes, you're saying amazing, yes, and they are very well used. We had a small staff area. We now have 4 self-check machines where the public can check out materials to themselves, and we have an automated materials handling unit in the back where people return items and it checks them in and sorts them out so that we can handle the high volume. When that branch was opened, we thought it'd be just more of a reading room. It's not. The people of Sioux Falls and Minnehaha County don't expect reading rooms in their branches. They want libraries. They want full-service libraries, and they're using it that way. The building was also built with a meeting room that we can divide in half. Our people on a weekly basis are asking for smaller spaces in that large meeting room. They want study rooms. They want smaller rooms where they can meet with a group of 4 to 6 rather than 20 to 50. So the redesign has us making better space for the computers, for the automated materials handling, for the flow of people coming in and out of the building, and create study rooms. Let's see, it will also do a replacement of the front restrooms, and it will replace the LED lighting. The lighting currently is not LED, so this will, with the lighting improvements and a replacement of the windows, we're anticipating an improved efficiency of over 20% in the electrical needs of the building. Exterior, one of the roofs needs to be repaired, so that needs to be done regardless of whether the renovation is done or not. Some of the siding needs replacement. The parking lot needs some improved lighting because of dark spots and security concerns based on that. And again, the windows need replacement. In the library's capital program, the capital program is where we purchase all of our library books and AV materials, both the physical materials and the downloadable ones that customers can use from home. That's the majority of the budget. That's actually $732,000 of that $905,000. The courier van that we have that makes our deliveries between all of the branches needs replacement. Courier van currently makes daily deliveries to all of the Sioux Falls locations and the Brandon location, and then goes to every other branch out in the county either 2 or 3 times a week so that we can get our materials turned around faster. One of the microfilm reader printers will be replaced, and the capital budget does include that LED lighting and the windows for Kaylee. The county's portion of the budget is $1,041,000 in 2016. This is an increase of 2.87% over the 2015 allocation. Now, the value of library service. In 2014, we had 1,300,852 people walk in our doors. All locations saw more people in the doors than the year before. We now have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week access to our electronic resources, including databases and the downloadable ebooks and audiobooks, which are getting more use than every year. It just continues to go up. We had 1,933,000 physical items checked out. If for those checkouts you valued them at $20 per item, that would total over $38 million. The full budget request for 2016 is $9,163,210. Do you have any questions?
Are there any questions for Jody? Christine? Councilman Erickson.
Thank you. You're fine. Just a couple questions. Just because I forget how this process works, it's unique with the county and the city. What other, and maybe it's a question for the county, I guess, but you would know, what other participation financially is the county giving? Maybe is that a question for somebody within the county?
Back when Minnehaha County Rural Public Library was formed in 1960, the citizens outside of Sioux Falls and Del Rapids voted to tax themselves solely for library service.
Okay.
So there is a separate property mill levy for library services. And so this $1,041,000 is equal to what is collected in property taxes for library services from people outside of Sioux Falls. Mm-hmm. So that is what the county provides for library service.
But it's not an additional above and beyond anything that's collected. It's just what is collected.
It is what is collected.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Yes.
That makes me see it clear.
Mm-hmm.
And any additional questions? Councilman Jameson.
Thank you, Jody. When you hired a consultant to come in and probably look at all of the libraries or just Kaylee? And
they were just looking at Kaylee. We were recognizing just problems that we were having with efficiencies and flows. Different things that we were doing took longer to do at Kaylee than they do at some of our other branches, particularly Prairie West, which was opened most recently. And so some of that had to do with how the building is set up and how things are arranged. And so we brought in consultants who are experts at looking at library spaces and saying, how could this be arranged better to fit your needs?
okay, and so I get that now. That makes sense. Then the other thought is the money that is being spent on the, I would call them generally capital improvements, are actually operating dollars versus capital funds. Is that how I understand it?
Some of the money is capital and some is operating. It depends on, and maybe finance can help with this too, but it depends upon what is happening if it like significantly improves the property. Am I correct? Then it could be a capital, like the replacement of the windows and the LED lighting is a significant improvement to the property, where renovation would come out of operating.
Okay.
And Tracy.
Yeah, that was a good response to that. The majority of the dollars for Kaylee are coming out of the general fund operating budget. It's primarily a remodeling renovation project to remodel the space that we have. We're not enlarging the building. We're not gaining any additional square footage. It's primarily to improve the function of the space, but also to do at the same time some of the typical things you do with any building. If you own it long enough, you've got to replace the roof and replace the siding. Those are considered more maintenance activities and therefore come out of the operating part of the budget.
Okay, I think I kind of get that. I know it's a little different than most. And then the final question, I suppose, is if you weren't granted this funding, the 1.1, would you have to buy more buckets because there's water leaking, or what would you do differently if you didn't have this renovation and remodel?
Well, about approximately 400,000 of what we've put into that are things that would be in the operating budget or the capital budget, just as regular maintenance. So what we would do is continue operating less efficiently than we should, not have study rooms that the public would like to have. We'd operate as it is.
Got it. Thank you. Thanks.
Councilman Anderson.
Jody, a great presentation. I love when something that the county and city do together works very well. But could you mention the other communities that have libraries, extension libraries?
Yes, I meant to when I came. We have 5 libraries in Sioux Falls, and then we have branches in Baltic, Brandon, Colton, Crooks, Hartford, Humboldt, Garrettson, and Valley Springs. And our branches that are in Brandon and Hartford are actually joint with the schools. So there we are, the Brandon Library is in the high school, on the side of the high school, and we have a great partnership there. And our Hartford one is the high school and middle school library.
And then to speak to those communities that just have the libraries, what's their investment in keeping a library in their community?
In each of the communities, they provide us the building. Other than in Crooks. The Crooks building is actually owned by the county. So the operating budget does include all of the facilities maintenance costs for the Crooks building, but in every one of those other communities, the community is providing us the building. We bring the staff and the books.
Thank you.
And Jody, I think the Crooks building, does it still house the bookmobile?
Yes, and the
Part of the
bookmobile.
reason
And the
why.
bookmobile provides service both in the county and in the city. And the use of that bookmobile it's higher than our old bookmobile, which I did not think would happen because the bookmobile that we now own is 2/3 the size of the old bookmobile, but the demand is ever increasing.
Additional questions? I just have one comment. I met last night with a program specialist from Washington, D.C. for libraries and the state library, a couple of board members in the evening, and they highly praised the library system that we have in Minnehaha County and said you don't see this across the nation, and encouraged us to apply for an award, and said they thought our chances were very good because what we do here is outstanding. So that was really nice to hear. So
Thank you.
if there are no more questions, I would look for a motion on the county side to approve the budget as presented.
Madam Chair, I would move to approve the 2016 joint budget for Siouxland libraries.
Second.
I have a motion from the county to approve the budget as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Now on the city side, I need a motion to approve the budget as presented.
Move to approve Erpenbach.
Second, Kylie.
I have a motion and a second. Can I have a roll call, please?
Council members Anderson?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Move on to item number 2. Oh, excuse me, item number 4.
Item 4 is joint budget hearing for Metro Communications.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, Council members. I'm Darren Ketchum. I'm the Director of Metro Communications here in Sioux Falls. Go over our 2016 budget, but before we do that, I'd like to acknowledge the hard work of our business manager, Anna Raker, as she's put this together for us for the past 6-7 years. Does a fantastic job, very detailed. If you have any questions throughout this, please feel free to ask. Here's just a short list of what we're going to look at today. Before we get into that, I just want to tell you up front that this budget represents a 0.3% decrease in expenses when compared to 2015. So we're very proud of the way that we're able to control expenses at the agency, and we'll go into that in more detail. In 2016, with your approval of these funds, we hope to process and handle 200,000 calls for service, 90,000 911 calls, 170,000 non-emergency calls, and handle 4.5 million radio transmissions. Here you can see our revenue. Overall, you see a slight increase from in our historical in 2012. That's when the surcharge was increased from 75 cents a line to $1.25. You see that in 2018, it decreases. That represents the sunset clause in the legislation. Overall, our revenue is, I'd call it flat. We continue to see decreases in your traditional telephone services, landlines, and homes and businesses. You may have seen a story in the media recently about cell services and how they're competing for a market that's not expanding. They're basically just taking customers from one business to the next, and you see changes in their market practices. That's reflected in our revenue estimates here. One bright spot the sunset provision in 2018, there is discussion about going to the legislature to have that repealed, so that way the surcharge would stay $1.25 rather than going back to $1. At this point, it's our recommendation that we proceed with the next generation 911 project that we're implementing as we speak throughout 2015 and 2016. See where that gets us. We'll still have plenty of time in 2017 to go to the legislature, and we'll have better information about the impacts of next generation 911 when we go to them. We had a strong coalition when we went to the legislature in 2012, and we anticipate that same support moving forward. Here you can see the revenue that we project from the city and the county. We go back to 2008, and we're projecting out through 2020. This is a 4% increase, which is within the target of the 3 to 5% as recommended by this body. The projections through 2020, if you look at that highest amount you get to in 2020, that brings us back to roughly the local contribution that we experienced in 2010. This increase, the 4% increase, would mean $12,000 more for Minnehaha County for a total contribution of $314,000 and a increase of $36,249 for approximately $942,000 for the city of Sioux Falls. Some of the other revenue we collect, some of our users pay a fee. Brandon Police Department pays a fee based on their call volume compared to our total call volume. We projected that at about $43,000. Reduced from prior years. Obviously, when we see increased calls from our partner agencies within the City of Sioux Falls and in Minnehaha County at the Sheriff's Office. Those increases are happening at a faster rate than the increases in Brandon, reducing their overall percentage of calls for service. We continue to be right at that 75% for the City of Sioux Falls for our call volume, which lines up really well with the funding formula, 75% from the city, 25% from the county after 911 surcharge is applied. Some new revenue that we have beginning this year and going into next year is with Paramedics Plus. In prior years when we dispatched the ambulance, we dispatched only their emergency calls. So if a hospital had an inter-facility transfer, say they're going to bring a patient from Sanford or Avera to the Mayo Clinic. In the past, those calls would be handled directly by the ambulance service, but still use the assets that we use to manage emergencies within the city. So what's changed this year is now we handle all those dispatches for them, so now we have better oversight and application of those resources within the city. They pay a fee currently set at $5 per the city's initial RFP. We'll go back and discuss this and enter negotiations with Paramedics Plus for 2016 to establish a rate based on some actual costs, and we have some real data to use. Right now we're basing it off of some estimates based on rural metro, and obviously there's differences in business practices that will change. The other item you see is audio recordings. This happens when private attorneys, different jurisdictions, if they have a court case, request an audio recording, whether it be a dispatch or a telephone call. They pay a fee minimum of $30. If it's more than an hour's worth of work, they pay $30 an hour after that. And the fee we're looking to increase to $40 in 2016. Our personnel expenses, they're increasing 5.3% over 2015 to $3.39 million. And that's represented largely by our health insurance. You know, we plan for roughly a 10% increase in our health benefits that we provide our employees. It also covers a cost of living adjustment to our wage matrix, and then our step increase for also as part of our wage matrix. Personnel expenses represent 82% of our total expenses at the agency. Operating expenses, you can see historically back to 2008 and again projected to 2020 where we're at. You can see we're not half, but nearly half of what we once were. And that's just due to some restructuring and recognizing expenses more appropriately in agencies where they occur rather than Metro being kind of the collection point for some of these. It also has a lot to do with the careful management of expenses at the agency, making sure we're spending tax dollars prudently. $624,000 is what we're looking at, and this 5% decrease from last year. A lot of that is from a $30,000 decrease with the telephone system. We're currently implementing a new telephone system as part of the next generation project that's going throughout South Dakota. So that'll save us $30,000 a year in telephone maintenance. We've also completed a project with the state for the digital radio system, which they took over a part of the maintenance for the system, which saved us an additional $30,000 a year. So that represents a large portion of our savings. Capital expenses, good news for this year and for many years looking forward. In the past, we had budgeted $150,000 for the next 5 years for a new telephone system. With this project, we no longer have to purchase our own standalone system. We'll be a partner stakeholder on the statewide system. We do have, in future years, money earmarked for an upgrade to the public safety software system that's currently in use, and we have that projected currently in 2017, just for your information. Wanted to show you the cash flow, you know, the 2015 budget versus the 2016 budget. And this is based on everything we know today. This is what the future looks like compared to last year at this time. So if you look across this, you'll see the increase or the projected increase for city and county contributions and the ending balance of our and in cash balance. You can see that the increases were reduced from 5 to 10% to 4 to 6%, and consistent with what we've been telling you for several years is we're going to spend down that cash reserve since we're no longer doing that large capital project. We've been saving up to that $1 million mark for that project, and which will leave us with roughly $2 million in the bank at the end of this year. So we'll start using that cash to offset some of that city-county contribution in future years. Looking at the future, some of the opportunities that we see is in 2015, the 911 surcharge will be, the distribution will be revised based on the 2015 census estimate. Obviously, we're seeing substantial growth in this area, and we expect to receive a larger portion of some of that surcharge funds. Over the course of the next year and a half to 2 years, the 911 next generation infrastructure will be completed, which will potentially see another reduction of up to $50,000 a year in operating expenses on top of the reductions we've already experienced. The sunset provision, when it is time to go to the legislature, we'll look for all of your support as we do that. And we believe with the removal of that provision, that'll buy us another 5 years worth of time without having to do significant 10 to 15% increases. This will allow us through potentially 2025 to sustain that 3 to 5% increases in city-county contribution while spending down that cash reserve. The 5 years of decreased growth in the city and county support represent a savings to the city and county taxpayers and their general fund dollar contribution to 911 service. In closing, you can see where we're at. Revenue is fairly flat. Expenses are decreasing, which is a good thing for us as an agency to maintain our long-term financial stability. We're reducing expenses in the right areas while we increase our investment in other areas such as personnel training, our technical systems that we use to dispatch public safety agencies throughout the jurisdiction. Pending any questions, that's all I have.
Are there any questions for Darren? Councilman Anderson?
Thank you for the presentation. The public safety software system, when was that installed that you say we're currently using?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
When was that installed?
That was installed, I believe, in 2002, 2003, just a little bit before I got here.
Okay, and then we're scheduled for an upgrade in 2017?
That's what we're tentatively planning right now is for, this is just Metro's portion of it. Obviously, all the public safety agencies have a piece, and we'll refine that estimate over the course of the next 6 months, hopefully.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Additional questions? Okay, I'd look for a motion on the county side to approve the budget as presented.
I'll make that motion. Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the budget as presented. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. On the city side, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Kylie?
Erpenbach.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Council members Anderson?
Yes.
Erickson? Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. We will move on to item number 5.
Item 5 is a joint budget hearing for Siouxland Heritage Museums.
Good evening. Bill Hoskins, Director of Siouxland Heritage Museums, here with the 2016 budget request for the Siouxland Heritage Museums. Let's see if I can. There we go. The Siouxland Heritage Museums is dedicated to the experience of learning for our community, its families and visitors through the collection, preservation, and interpretation of our history. We currently operate 2 buildings, the old Courthouse Museum and the Pettigrew Home Museum. Both are on the National Register of Historic Places. Both are a little over 125 years old. A little bit about the museums over the last year, our visitation in 2014 was just under 81,000. Both buildings are open to the public daily. The busiest days of the week are Friday, Saturday, and Thursday in that order. Our busiest months in 2014 were October, March, and August. We had visitors from 49 states, everybody but Rhode Island, and from 29 foreign countries. Our staff manages over 99,000 cataloged artifacts. The artifacts range in size from the Faywick Flyer to things smaller than a dime. About 3,000 objects per year are on exhibition. We also have about 10,000 objects that are available online in a searchable database. Our museum education program, and the museum is an educational facility. We presented over 700 programs last year for a little over 47,000 people. That was about a 14.5% increase over 2013. Staff and volunteers presented over 1,300 guided tours of the Pettigrew home. We served 88 K-12 schools in 24 school districts, including every single school in Minnehaha County. About 68% of our off-site programs were at sites within the City of Sioux Falls, 12% in Minnehaha County, and about 8% in Lincoln County. Museum rentals. We rent the old courthouse facility in 2014. It was rented 107 times. We have rented it 48 times as of the 1st of August this year. We have, for instance, coming up in September, 12 dates, rental dates at the Old Courthouse Museum, and we've already contracted for 24 in 2016 as of the 1st of August. One of the things that's key in our operation is our volunteer staff, and last year we had 127 volunteers who contributed over 3,300 hours. So far in 2015, we've increased the number of volunteers by about 25% and the number of volunteer hours, which is really critical, by over 36%. So we have more people coming, and they're each spending a little bit more time helping with our operation. We recognize our volunteer staff annually at a volunteer recognition banquet. You're all invited to. It's in April during Volunteer Week. The museum's Special Enterprise Fund pays for all of our volunteer program expenses. The Siouxland Heritage Museums was created in 1974 through a joint cooperative agreement between the City of Sioux Falls and Minnehaha County. We have an 11-member museum board, 5 who are appointed by the county and 5 by the city. And the 11th person is the president of the Siouxland Heritage Museums Alliance, which at this time happens to be Diane Metley, who's here. Article 4 of that joint cooperative agreement requires that the museum board prepare and present to the City Council and County Commission an annual budget, and that's why I'm here tonight. The museum budget is, in fact, actually 5 different budgets. Each one has a little bit different road rules, and I'm going to go through each of them, but collectively they interact with each other as time has gone on more and more. The first budget I'll talk about is the museum's operations budget. It's supported 50-50 by the city and county under that joint cooperative agreement. It's administered by Minnehaha County. And in 2016, we're asking for $1,035,863. 93% of that is for human resources. Our operational expenses is $72,385 in the operations budget. This is a history of our full-time positions over the last, 14 or 15 years. And for 2016, we're asking for a total of $1,019,269 for human resources. This represents no new positions in 2016, no change in our part-time hours. We do have 2 fit positions that are funded in part by the enterprise fund, the events coordinator and one of our exhibits assistants. It does include changes to the county's pay matrix that the county commission has decided, and a 5% projected increase in group health. One of our major goals is to continue to improve and expand our volunteer program. Excuse me. If you look at the history of our operational budget expenses, it's been quite a bit higher, it's been lower, and what we're proposing, we think is what we need to get the job done in this next year. Some highlights of that: the operations budget as a whole covers 100% of the human resource costs for 14 positions and 2/3 of the cost for the exhibits assistant and events coordinator. It covers 100% of the rental costs for those collections that we have stored off-site. About 67% of our advertising costs for events and programs, 30% of our collection supplies and materials, 26% of our exhibition costs. One thing that I don't have an exact projection, but I think is going to save us money, in early 2015, we did purchase a new phone system for the museum system, a ShoreTel system, through the Museum Enterprise Fund. It's a voice over IP. I'm told it will save us quite a bit of money, but I have absolutely no idea exactly what that will be. And so for the purpose of budgeting, we are projecting the same costs as in 2015, although I expect it will be less. The second budget is the Pettigrew maintenance budget. This is a budget that's funded by the City of Sioux Falls. It is administered by Minnehaha County. We're asking for $44,130 in 2016. That is a bit of an increase over the 2015 budget. The major expenses, we've had an ongoing project to repair and maintain the 98 windows at the Pettigrew Home and Museum. Part of that maintenance has been, we're going through our storm windows, which have a polycarbonate glazing. We're making sure that the frames are in good shape, replacing that polycarbonate that gets brittle over time, and just systematically going through the windows. In the course of that, late last year, we discovered that we have a problem with a few of the windows in the what we call the WPA or Hazen addition to the museum. It's really the Pettigrew Museum's 3 construction periods. The house was built in 1889. R.F. Pettigrew added an addition in 1923, and the city, in conjunction with the WPA, added on a 3rd addition that was completed in 1934. The big change happened. The WPA stonemasons were not skilled workers. And so in Mr. Pettigrew's addition and the historic house, you'll look at the lintels over windows and doors, and they're large dressed pieces of stone. In the WPA edition, they didn't have skilled stonemasons, and they used steel plates for lintels over the windows. And what's happening is we're getting corrosion in those steel plates, and as they expand, they cause some problems in the windows. And the solution is to, on those windows, take out the stonework around, replace the steel plates. And this is a problem that, for instance, the courthouse annex that the public defenders are in, that the county owns, has the exact same problem and has been dealing with in a systematic way as well over time. Anyway, that's an additional cost to continue that repair to the windows. If you look at what our budget breaks down, it's about 52% repairs and upkeep to a 125-year-old building. Utilities are about 32%. contracts for alarm monitoring for the fire alarm, the burglar alarm, the elevator inspections, and mechanical systems is about 10%. Cleaning supplies for light bulbs, about 4%. The old Courthouse Museum budget is funded by Minnehaha County. The county owns the old Courthouse Museum. It's administered by the county. In 2016, we're asking for $61,820. That's primarily, we're starting a window project at the old Courthouse Museum. It has a few more, over 280 windows. We have steam traps. We still have steam radiators, and changing over those is an important thing. We've, at the end of this year, we'll have done about 75% of them over the last 2.5 years. We will probably continue that in 2016. Tuck pointing as we needed. We have also included replacing a rubber roof, which is in the county building fund budget, and some exhibit gallery carpet replacement, which is money we have budgeted in the enterprise fund. If you look at where some of our expenses are, it's about 35% in repairs for the old Courthouse Museum, 39% in utilities, contracts. It's a bigger building. We employ Johnson Controls to help us maintain the mechanical systems, the elevator, a little bit more expensive. One of our projects over the last 2.5 years or so has been working with the electricity. We have, at the old courthouse, converted basically from incandescent lighting in our exhibit galleries to an LED system. We're changing over to LED bulbs. And from the beginning of 2012 through 2014, that saved us 12%. That's actual costs in electrical costs. And in 2015 to date, it's down about an additional 5%. So there is a real savings in that investment. And we have done a similar thing at the Pettigrew Museum. I don't have the exact figures yet, but it's a similar savings level. The Museum Enterprise Fund is a revenue budget. It was established in 1996. It's administered by the county, and its purpose was to receive revenues and account for expenses associated with the rental of space in the museum, for the sponsorships and provision of programs, events, and services for which a fee is charged. I make an annual report to the joint meeting every April on what actually happened with the Enterprise Fund. This budget is really giving me spending authority to a certain point. This is a revenue fund, so if we don't bring in the revenue, we aren't spending the money. Some of the things that are in this budget this year, highlights, well, it's 33% of the cost for the exhibits assistant and events coordinator position, about $47,000. That will get reimbursed, that operations budget, from the enterprise fund. Excuse me. We have 2 paid college internships, summer internships, that will be paid for out of the enterprise fund. All the labor associated with the rentals gets reimbursed to the operations budget from the enterprise fund. We have money for carpet in exhibit galleries at both the Pettigrew and Old Courthouse Museum, budgeted for 2016. It pays for about 70% of our costs for collection, supplies, and materials, 100% of the cost for artifact conservation. About 74% of our exhibit materials are now in the enterprise fund. Educational programming, all of the costs for our programs are in the enterprise fund. Also this year, in 16, all of the money for any staff training or travel would be in the enterprise fund, and all of the cost of our volunteer program. And one of the projects that's really helping to increase this, we do from time to take on outside exhibition projects. And we have contracted with Sioux Falls Stockyards, Inc. to design and produce exhibits that they hope to have installed in the horse barn in Falls Park. I'm not sure where that is on the city's, their negotiation, but we have a contract with them. And so that represents both a increased anticipated income, but also expenses, and those are calculated into the bottom line for the enterprise fund. If you look at income, we look at it from, it comes in support of an education program. The concerts, for instance, will get sponsorships. That money is specifically tagged as income for an educational program. So this shows you where that income comes in: education, for exhibits, for a collections project, rentals. Other is really the catch-all, the donation box by the front door, things like that. Our projected expenses look a little different. Education is actually making us money, our programming, generally speaking. Exhibits also we anticipate will make us money next year. Collections. The other is probably the big part, and that is largely human resource costs that we are using these other areas to help pay for: the events coordinator, the exhibits assistant position, the internships during the summer, the volunteer program. Finally, I have the store budget. Again, it's a revenue budget established in 1990 to account for expenses and revenues associated with the operation of the museum store. And we're asking a budget of $28,568. It really breaks down to being for product development and store inventory, advertising costs associated with the store, credit card fees. We got to pay those to keep making sales in the store. And the store is also supporting the education program with a balance transfer of about $7,000 a year from the store, money the store's generated, into the enterprise fund to support that budget. If you look at all those 5 things poured together and look at where the money's coming from, this budget would have the city supporting about 40% of the whole. Minnehaha County, 41%. The old Courthouse Museum's a little bigger and more expensive to maintain, and approximately 19% from revenue funds. The budgets that we need to adopt tonight are the museum's operations budget, which is a joint budget, and the 2 revenue funds. Any questions?
Thank you, Bill. Are there any questions for Bill? Councilman Erkenbach?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. It's always fun to hear what you guys are doing. And a couple of, I think the most important thing for us to remember about the museums is that it really is kind of it's a bare bones budget, right? I mean,
It is. The enterprise fund has been our salvation. Yeah. And it's our ability to come up with new ways to generate money and still keep it affordable for the public and for that portion of the public that can't afford to pay money.
So 2 questions then, if I could. One, Bill, one of my favorite stories about the way you keep this budget so tight is about the windows. We don't hire somebody to come in and do those. We don't have them made in a factory somewhere. Would you remind us how those new storm windows are made?
Well, we target a number each year. We're working on 8 this year right now. And they're produced in our exhibit shop by our exhibit staff, and we handle it. I had a bid a number of years ago, and it was about $1,200 per window to hire someone to do it, and we're doing it for between $80 and $100 per window material costs.
To me, that's remarkable, and we know that anybody that has an old house knows that none of the windows is the exact same size.
And that's part of the problem with having someone else do it, is there are no two windows that are the same. Everyone's unique.
Right. It's an amazing thing. I mean, that's the beauty of the project. So then back to the enterprise fund. You do use it creatively. You do reload it creatively as many times as you can. Is there ever a time when that enterprise fund makes it possible for the museums to sustain themselves?
Well, good question. About 10 years ago, Kermit Staggers was on the museum board first, and Kermit came, and at that time, he was, I think we were at 4 or 5% of the budget, and he was wondering how soon it would be 20%. I wasn't sure then. It certainly, we're about there. I think that what we've talked about, or our goal, is to move towards 30, but I really don't see any time in the future where the museum system could survive without government support.
Well, I just quickly did sort of the math on the number of people that you've served over the last year, about 80,000 people, and if we were to make them pay for that $1 million that we're talking about, it's $12.50 a pop.
Yeah,
it's a lot.
And it's considerably less than almost any other museum in the region.
This is a valuable commodity, and it's relatively inexpensive for us as governments to support this. I just continue to remind us how important these are for us and for our community and the education value of these programs. So thank you, Bill. Appreciate it.
Additional questions, Commissioner Jamerson. Councilman Jamerson.
Thank you. On the question about the archives building, has been floating around out there for years. Give us an update on that, and then as well, maybe one other question, but I'll maybe just let that one go. Update us on that if you could.
The land's for sale. We recently, in June, changed realtors. It's currently being handled by Nelson Property Consultants, and I'm hoping to continue to move it forward. Really, at the moment, that's the chief situation. We're trying to sell the land as we all agreed to get done first. On another level, we have construction drawings completed. We've worked through an architect with that, yeah, that's.
Did you change the price of the land? Did you reduce it, or just change realtors?
I believe as it was first listed, it was listed at a higher price. That price has been reduced. It's now listed at $2.50 a square foot. It was, I think, $3.41 per square foot initially, and.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. That's part of the other is the building next to the old Courthouse Museum.
Okay.
What is that building?
To the north or
to the
west?
north?
To the north, that was built as the Minnehaha County Annex. It was the courthouse annex. It was built in 1934 as a WPA project, and it's housed a number of county governmental functions over the years. Currently, it's the home for the Public Defender's Office.
And I might be stepping on toes, but is that ever been a consideration of a place for storage?
In fact, before any of the current commission's time, in the 1980s, we had 2 floors of that building for collection storage and got kicked out of it for offices for the lawyers.
But, okay, I'm sorry to keep stepping on the toes here, but could you, could it be used again, do you think, if those people were placed somewhere else?
Conceivably, yes.
Work?
It could be used for some of our storage needs.
Okay.
Just as a structure, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions for Bill?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Barth.
I just comment that Councilman Jameson has big shoes. But, you know, I guess I've been on the museum board for a number of years, and the financing is so complicated that every time I start to go through it all again, it seems like I'm learning it all over again. And I probably do it like 4 times a year. You know, it would be nice if we could find a way to privatize a greater amount of these expenditures. Certainly they're public buildings, our Pettigrew building, our old courthouse building, our public buildings, and perhaps the greatest artifacts that we have in our community. But, you know, we had the Hall family step up and make an incredible donation of land, which we've not yet been able to fully exploit because it's not sold. But, you know, I do hope that at some point, you know, government assistance to this operation could be reduced and we could self-finance it in our community, which seems to have lots of money for other things. Thank you.
Additional comments or questions?
If I could, if you adopt this budget today, it, as a percent, it will represent the lowest level of support from the City of Sioux Falls and Minnehaha County in the history of the Siouxland Heritage Museums.
Thank you, Bill. Is there a motion from the county side?
Madam Chair, I'd make a
budget?
motion to approve. Make a motion to approve the 2016 budget for Siouxland Heritage Museum. Second.
I have a motion and a second from county. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. I'd look for a motion on the city side, please.
So moved. Karski.
Second, Erpenbach.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Anderson.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Erpenbach. Yes. Jameson.
Yes.
Karski.
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Rolfing.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Item number 4 is old business. Is there any old business? Item number, oops, that was item 6. Item number 7 is new business. Is there any new business?
I do. I have one comment here. There's one thing that I've realized during the meeting that we don't discuss during budget meetings, and that's the Multicultural Center, which is another joint project between the city and the county. I'd like to see in the future that be included in this type of a meeting. We do give them money, and the county takes care of the building, and I think this would be, we really don't get a lot of updates from the Multicultural Center. We do jointly jurisdict the operations, but I think this would be a good place to be able to bring them here at least once a year to describe what they're doing for the expenses and the facility that they're using.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Councilman Anderson. I would look for a motion to adjourn on the county side.
That's my motion.
Second. A motion, a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. On the city side, motion and a second.
Moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We are adjourned.